welcome back to my Arrowed episode review. My episode review of The Brave and the Bold, the part two of the Flash and Arrow crossover. Um, what an episode! I This is probably my favorite episode of Arrow, to be honest, and not only because of the crossover, but because just so much. There was so much good to it, more than I was expecting, to be honest. Because with last night's episode of Flash being very like, oh hey, here's Arrow, here's Flash, they're gonna battle it out, and then they're gonna team up, everything will be all yeah, good. Superheroes unite, like that type of stuff. But this episode, it felt very much like an Arrow episode, while also being in the context of the Flash and Arrow crossover, and I love that so much. And it's honestly, I think it's a lot more fun seeing these characters come into Arrow's world because this is where this whole thing started. With Arrow and Flash was Arrow was the one who started it clearly, and it's so nice seeing. Obviously, it was fun seeing the episode. With the dynamics between like Diggle and reacting to various powers, and, him and Cisco kind of having like they're butting heads over who's going to win, and then of course Caitlin and Felicity. But it's honestly, to me, it was so much more enjoyable. Not because it was more like funny, but because of what was going on at the episode. It was just the character moments in this episode. I felt they're like, because it's much more like not a darker tone, but more serious tone. I like that so much more because I got to enjoy the episode that much more because as much fun as Flash versus Arrow was, Brave and the Bold was it upped the ante in the quality and how it was written and excuse me, and it was the quality of the episode compared to just like, oh, here's a big team up, it was still very much part. It was the team up wasn't the core of the episode, and that's what I enjoyed because in the episode it is very much about Oliver's dilemma, as well as what's going on in the flashbacks, what's going on in the Arrow Cave, what's going on with Barry and Oliver and their differences, like all of that perfectly melded together into one great episode. Again, I think this is my favorite episode of Arrow so far because not only do you have like one of the coolest team ups, but there's such good storytelling and such good character moments in this episode. And for me, it's like Oliver's big dilemma is it's almost like a mirror opposite, like looking back on like how he had to start torturing in the flashbacks, and then how he's thinking about excuse me again, and how he's thinking about torturing right now in the present, and how effective is it, and what does it do to his humanity? Like how much of himself is the Arrow, and how much of him is really Oliver Queen? And I love how Stephen Amell handles that in this episode. And Barry is he almost plays like the Diggle character in this episode, like the emotional backbone, like the emotional anchor, trying to bring Oliver. I mean, at first, like Barry was like almost like offended by how Oliver was like torturing the guy to get the information, but then towards the end, he's like, you told me I can give hope. It's like, no, Oliver, it's you. And that was such a great delivery of the lines and such great writing. And it was, I really felt for this, like in this episode. And for me, it takes a lot for me to feel for characters in the show. I mean, obviously, I can relate to the Barry character way more than Oliver, but when there's real emotion there, you can really feel it, and the actors are really displaying that real emotion. It feels real, even though they are acting. That's what makes it so much more enjoyable as a show to watch. And as a fan of the show, I love that so much. Sorry, I keep looking off in the distance. But I love this episode so much on so many different levels. And honestly, excuse me, I can't find much wrong with it at all. And of course, my thing is what I like to do is of course, I like as much as I love to talk about the positives of a show, I also like to talk about the negatives. But tonight, I could not find much wrong with it at all. If anything, the villain, I liked him a lot better than the villain they used in Flash versus Arrow because that was a horrible villain, to be honest. But for me, Captain Boomerang, while it didn't feel like the true Captain Boomerang, it did what it served. The character served its purpose. It was a cool villain, created cool weapons and all that, and then it helped tell the story in a much better way than on the Flash versus Arrow episode. So for me, the villain, just it's still good, but not as good as I would want it to be. But it's still like minor in the grand scheme of the whole episode. And it's so cool seeing Roy, Oliver, and Barry, all of them all team up, try to like stop Captain Boomerang when he has his bombs all over the city. And Barry's like, I can't be multiplex. I can't be in two places, in a bunch of places at once. And he's like, wait a minute, I don't have to be. And then he's dragging, Felicity, Caitlin, Cisco, Roy, and himself, like all to these bomb sites, so they can stop the bombs. And that was so awesome, and it was so cool. Because typically it's like, oh, like, I figure, like, Barry's gonna figure out some way of doing it by himself. And what I love about these shows is like the heroes realize they're not alone. And it was subtle in this episode, but they're really like it's like a subtle emphasis on the fact that the heroes are not alone. Like, it's like in the grand scheme of things, they are part of a team, and without their team, they aren't truly the heroes they are. Again, sorry guys, I'm a little sick. You have to bear my coughing here and there. But what's great about these characters is they're great on their own, but they would not be where they are, and they would not be who they are as heroes without their team. Barry wouldn't be where he is if he didn't have Cisco and Caitlin and Harrison Wells as his anchors, and even Joe as his anchors. Oliver would not be where he is now without Diggle, without Felicity. And to me, this episode, while it was subtle with the whole bomb situation, I think it showed that, like, Oliver and Barry are not alone, and being a part of a team makes them stronger and makes them better as heroes. And I love that angle. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it a bit, maybe, but to me, that's what shows that that's what makes them heroes, is they realize they're not alone in this fight for good. But oh my god, this episode, there's so much to talk about, and I wish I had someone else to talk about it with other than just like my laptop camera, because this episode, as much fun as last night's episode was, this one was much more entertaining. I mean, like, again, like fun and entertaining, like they can they go together. But this one episode was just because it was still an episode of Arrow dealing with Argus and the flashbacks and Lila and Diggle and all that going on. There was so much, excuse me, so much going on, and it blended together perfectly, in my opinion. The one minor thing I want to mention now is, where the hell is Diggle's baby? I have not seen that baby in weeks. And who the hell watches that baby? I mean, I think like they explained it like a few weeks back. They had like an Argus babysitter, basically. But at the same time, it's like, come on, really? Like, there's a big emphasis on like the kid about the baby in season 2 finale of Arrow, and then in the first and second episode, and then even in the third episode. But then it's like, oh, well, so we're going to kind of ignore the fact that you have a baby at home and you guys are just, like, doing all this stuff. I mean, I understand, like, they have their jobs, but still at the same time, it's like, you guys have an infant. Shouldn't you be there for your kid? I don't know. That was just me. But other than that, it's such a great episode. Rating, obviously I'm not done talking about this, but rating right now, 9.5 out of 10. I have never been so invested, so entertained, and so overall pleased with an episode of Arrow like this before. Not a season finale, not a mid-season finale. Nothing tops this. And even, excuse me, last year, probably one of my favorite episodes was League of Assassins, Air of the Demon, Unthinkable, Deathstroke. I mean, those are all really good episodes. But for me, this one had everything I needed. Like, Oliver's dilemma and what he was going through. You really feel for Oliver. And at the same time, like, what's going on, the whole Flash and Arrow crossover. And how Team Arrow and Team Flash, and how how they're talking and their banter back and forth, and even like I like Roy and Cisco, like, and them kind of like Roy being like, I like this guy when Cisco was talking about, oh, I like the red suit, red's better than green. He's like, yeah, I like this guy. Like, that was pretty funny to me. It was like subtle humor, kind of stupid humor, but I like that. But again, this episode was so it upped the ante for me. I cannot wait until next week's episode, The Flash and Arrow, because it's gonna suck not going into next week. And then The Flash isn't gonna be there, because at least with last year when Barry was on Arrow, it was 2 episodes, and the last episode being the Arrow's mid-season finale. Of course, I had Deathstroke, and then at the end Barry getting struck by lightning. It's gonna kind of suck not having that this year, but still, it was. Other than that, I mean, other than not being able to see them together again next week, this crossover was everything I could have wanted for and more. Except for the villain last week, I hated that so much. But other than that, the Flash and Arrow, and oh my god, I almost forgot to mention this. The end of the episode when Cisco gives Oliver an upgraded suit with the same hood, so nice. And when Cisco was like, Felicity told us to keep the hood from you because it has a sentimental, for sentimental reasons to keep it, and I love that so much. And then Oliver, having like the case for the Flash for when he's there, he's like, "Does me want to team up more?" He's like, "It's still on my terms," but basically saying it's this is your home when you're not in Central City, and that was so nice, and they played it off so great. And one thing I love about this episode, minimal Thea. Actually, I wish there was more Laurel because she's only in like one scene, I think. And then even like the banter between Detective Lance and Barry, that was, I mean, it was a little bit, but I like that because we haven't seen that really at all since like this time last year. And it was kind of cool seeing that a little bit. And even for me, like one thing I wanted from the Flash and Arrow was more of Oliver and Joe talking it out. Because almost because Joe is almost like Detective Lance from Arrow. Like their characters are very similar, but this crossover was so much fun, and it's been so much fun talking to you guys about it because I need to vent. I need to talk about these episodes and what I'm into because I can't exactly talk about this sort of stuff with my friends. I mean, my friends like they know I'm into all the superheroes and stuff clearly, but it's like in one year out the other with them. Like they could really care less. So it's nice having you guys to talk to about the things I love, and Arrow and Flash being among them. And again, this crossover, so much fun, so enjoyable. Tonight's episode was so great. 9.5 out of 10. I loved it so much. Again, it upped the ante for me. I can't wait until next week's episodes of Arrow and Flash. This crossover was worth the wait. It was so much fun, and I love the way the show ended. Like they still aren't saying who could win because they want to tease us fans because that's their job is to tease us, and it worked. Again, this episode was so great, and this crossover was so much fun, so enjoyable, and I've had so much fun talking about it with you guys. All right, well, that'll be it for me. My review of the Arrow episode, Brave and the Bold, end of the 2-part Arrow and Flash crossover. Hopefully, we'll have one again soon, the next few months, if not year. All right, guys, that'll be it for me. And until next time, have a good one.